talked about what the Dallas Stars could get if they deal Jason Robertson before the deadline, but how could they keep him happy? How could they even increase the probability of getting a good contract signed with Jason Robertson? Well, it's acquiring his brother. I've talked about it many times, but I think a deal like this for Toronto would make sense. You get Bichelle and you get a second round pick kind of in exchange for Carlo in a way. And Sam Steele, I mean, he's got that potential still as the same age roughly as Nick Robertson. I think it's kind of a one-for-one swap in a way as a separate deal, and then you could see Carlo going for Bichelle and a second-round pick. I think Toronto's content with that after giving up Minton and a first for Carlo. You kind of replicate that return again in a way. I think it's a valuable asset to get a guy like Bichelle, 6'7", Treliving, Berube, if they're obviously in the equation, they would love those kind of players. So I want to make this clear. I'm showing this graphic here, but I think the Oilers could go for OEL, McMann. So many guys from Toronto. Bob Stauffer actually reported that the Oilers, or actually I should say specifically, he reported that a team has offered a first-round pick for OEL, while at the same time he's kind of alluded to the fact that the Oilers are interested in OEL. So not saying that those two exist in the same, but a first-round pick, OEL, a lot of these things could be connected. The Oilers continue to be a roller coaster this season. I think they are going to make moves. Like McMahon's the Alberta boy, so it makes some sense. But in terms of like a third line center, Nick Waugh also in that equation. It just makes a lot of sense for Edmonton and Toronto to make a trade. But I know they could look in so many different directions. Austin Matthews could be a target for the Minnesota Wild, whether it's now or in the future, if Toronto was even open to trading him. The reason I say that, well, Matthews obviously just won an Olympic gold with guys like Matt Boldy and Quinn Hughes, and was line mates with Matt Boldy. The Minnesota Wild, it's no secret, could use a top center like Austin Matthews. I think teams like the LA Kings could. I think the Wild would have that aggressive package Toronto would want. David Jiricek, Eric Sinek, Wallstead. It's quite the package for the Wild to give up. And I think the Wild could have a really good chance at doing something special with Austin Matthews. Just quick chat on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Brandon Carlos, Scott Lawton, Nick Waugh, go down the list. They could get multiple first-round picks if they really, really plan this well. Detroit and Edmonton are the two teams I see screaming for Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Toronto should get at least a first-round pick out of those two teams individually. And then you look at the Dallas Stars, Brandon Carlo, even 50% retained. I do want to make that clear for the Toronto standpoint. Toronto going into next year, if they're really trying to retool instead of rebuild, retool is the smart call for this team because you have Matthews, Nyes, Tavares, Nylander locked up. It's not like you're worried about another big contract that you need to sign in the short term here. So you can afford to retain on contracts that are either up this year or have one additional year. So guys like Brandon Carlo, Scott Lawton, Nick Waugh, guys like that, you could retain 50%. And for teams that are acquiring those players and are tight on the cap, if they can acquire those players at like 1.5 million, that is so valuable to their team. They will be giving up a first round pick and more. So yes, another reminder for fans, Leaf fans, anyone watching, the Leafs have that option to do so, and they could get 2-3 first-round picks, and it's a better direction going into next year. So I think if you could flip Carlo, get similar assets that you gave up, like a first and Minton, especially if you retain, the value is there. Right shot, 6'5", top four defenseman, the profile's there. You give up a lot to get that, especially when it's not a rental, because Brandon Carlo is under contract next year. So that's a conversation for Toronto. I think these deals make sense, and you're trying to get those first-round picks and first-round pick type prospects for next year.